part of a recent series of stories that I've done have been to talk about some things in North Korea that I feel like I've been getting some impressions about what I think is going to be happening there. And most recently, my opinion is that there's going to be a war. Not something I'm glad to say, but I believe that's the case. 2013, as I've expressed in some of my writings that I put on hub pages, which is a thing that you can load up any kind of commentary that you have. If you want to write out an article or something, you can load it there. So I wrote one called North Korea, the Future War, and I made the point that 2013 has been a year of extremity, where we've seen a lot of odd things happening. Already we've seen a major asteroid explode over Russia. We've seen the Pope quit his job after 600 years. It's never happened in 600 years. No Pope has quit in 600 years. Very unusual. And we're told in our news that later this year there's going to be a very large comet that is going to come near our planet, and that this comet will be brighter than the moon. So a lot of things of a very extreme nature. So I am of the opinion that this is going to translate over into potential conflict in Asia as well. I had a couple of different possibilities for how this is going to spring up, and I'll kind of read my article now that I wrote and give you some idea of what I think is the possibility for the future. This is something that could play out relatively soon, or may play out in the future, but I think further in the future, like months in the future, maybe a year, or maybe 2 years in the future. But whenever it plays out, I think it will roughly play out like I'm describing, even if it is delayed for a period of time. So I'll go ahead and read this now. The future timelines of North Korea break down into a few choices and outcomes. Essentially, I see three directions with the possibility of minor variations. What is the most likely future event at present? War. A conflict between North Korea versus the United States and South Korea. There's a certain element of blunder or miscalculation that could be at work in how this war, if it comes, gets started. An unexpected response to what, in the past, would have been viewed as a relatively minor provocation seems to be one of the causative elements. For example, if two men were disagreeing about a sporting event in a bar and one of the men touches the other on the arm and the other man then hit him with a bar stool, this would be unexpected and extreme. But this is the year of extremity, so something that could be anticipated is that things are going to be of extreme nature. The exact details of what causes this sequence of events happens that leads to this conflict is not something I'm seeing. It's not necessarily a given that it's going to be a conflict, but my sense is that there's so many different possibilities that none of them really stand out. There are a couple, though, that seem as though they may have a greater degree of probability than others. One of them involves a rocket, which is very much in the news right now. There's very much discussion right now about two rockets that are on the coast of North Korea. This article that I did was from a few days ago, so it's a little bit, maybe a little bit out of date now. Events are kind of catching up to what I had said. Either a rocket that goes off course or a submarine. And I got the idea that there could be two events that occur, one that involves the rocket, one that involves the submarine. The submarine thing is not something I've heard anything about yet in any kind of news articles. So that's one that if it occurs, it would definitely be, I would definitely be scoring a hit on that one, because there's been no discussion about anything involving a North Korean submarine or an American submarine in North Korean waters or anything like that. Nothing like that has been discussed. But there could be some event that involves a submarine that acts as a causative agent, a blunder, a miscalculation that ends up leading to a conflict. Most everyone at the moment is saying that there's not going to be any kind of a conflict because they don't expect this to happen. My sense is that if there is a conflict, it could go a couple of different ways. The timeline on a conflict would be about 3 to 6 months. And it depends upon if the attitude of the North Koreans, the South Koreans, and the United States are more towards an aggressive campaign or towards a defensive campaign. If you see the United States and South Korea acting in an aggressive fashion, they are attacked, or in some ways they feel like they're justified and have to go in and attack North Korea, then at that point in time it becomes a 5 or 6 month campaign. During this 5 or 6 month campaign, there's a possibility that nuclear weapons will be used. Probably toward the end of the campaign, although it might be that it occurs at the beginning of the campaign as a type of sneak attack on the part of North Korea. They might use a nuclear weapon that they detonate in the atmosphere as a first punch against the South and against the United States in order to deactivate a lot of the technological advantage that you see in the United States and South Korea. If this occurs, if this attack occurs, not necessarily the nuclear attack, but if any attack occurs, and you see the response from South Korea and the United States is to commence an invasion, then it'll be a longer war. If, on the other hand, South Korea and the United States act in a defensive manner, they're attacked by North Korea, there's a retaliation that occurs, but they do not follow up that retaliation with any talk of an invasion of North Korea, it'll be a relatively short war, probably around 2.5 or 3 months, is my feeling. During that time period, there's a very good chance that Kim Jong Un, well, actually, I have to keep them clear in my mind. They changed recently. If Kim Jong Un actually initiates this, I think that his own generals might replace him, which is not necessarily a good thing for the future, because if you see the generals taking over in North Korea, there's a good chance that future conflict in 4 or 5 years will be radically nuclear. It could be an extreme circumstance. But there is a chance that Kim Jong Un will be replaced in this time period. The other possibility is that the Chinese could view an attack on North Korea as an excuse to go in and change the borders of China by absorbing part or all of North Korea. And I think they would do this if they saw that the North was losing, or in some other way looked like it was going to end up as more of a detriment to China than as an asset. If North Korea, on the other hand, is winning any kind of a conflict that's going on, I think that China will sit back and will just allow it to occur. I think it will provide material and other support to the North Koreans no matter what. I think that's going to occur. It may have to happen in a sub rosa kind of fashion to where they don't advertise what they're doing, but I think that in any kind of conflict, they will support the North, probably while saying out loud publicly at the same time that they deplore what's going on in Korea. But I think that there's very little option for that. If there is a defensive war on the part of the U.S. and South Korea, I think it'll be mostly a commando and limited air campaigns, strikes back and forth like that. And I don't think there'll be any major change that happens in North Korea, other than the fact that there's probably not going to be Kim Jong Un in charge anymore. I think things would very largely stay pretty much the same. If there is no war that comes at this particular time, then I think it's not necessarily the case that it's going to be peace. I think it will actually be a time period of a delayed war, where you'll actually see war that will occur at some further time period in the future, somewhere perhaps in August or September of 2013 or in the spring of 2014. There's a chance for there to be, Kim Jong Un will still be in charge. I think that this would kind of be a delayed type of event. That's my feeling, is these are the other timelines when you could actually see, these are the moments in time in September or October, or excuse me, in August or September of 2013, or sometime in the spring of 2014, you could see the tensions that are going on right now in April of 2013, which is when I'm doing this, you could see that kind of begin to occur at those times as well. But I still think that there's a very good chance that right now we're going to see a conflict that's going to break out because of a miscalculation or some other form of accident, I guess you would say. So where there's not really any intent on the part of people to go to war, but it just kind of seems like events propel them into war. And that could be at any moment in time, from what I understand. I'm not getting a real sense of there being any kick of the teeth timelines where there's suddenly an outpouring of common interests, of understanding. There are too many competing interests involved, and it has a bad feel about it. Until there's actually some recognition or some other outside agency comes in and begins to threaten Korea. If there was a Chinese invasion of North Korea in order to change the regime in North Korea, perhaps that would go a long way towards uniting the part of Korea that remained south and north, whatever modicum of North Korea remained. It might quickly elect to join the South because it was facing a much larger threat in the form of the Chinese army. That's, like I say, I think that's my sense is, what I've been told is that's not a very likely scenario. The more likely scenario is that there is a campaign that on the part of the United States and South Korea, after they are attacked or feel like they are attacked or come to the decision point that it is better to go ahead and have a war with North Korea now than to wait until later when North Korea has got a greater amount of nuclear weapons, better stockpile, more rockets, all these various different things, where we can menace the rest of Eastern Asia there. So Japan, South Korea, Guam, Taiwan, all these various different places, the west coast of the United States, those all come under threat the longer the time goes on. And I think that for military strategists, that might be something that they decide is an unpleasant thing, but that it has to be done. And I've got that sense several times when I've looked at this, is that there's some people who may be coming to the decision point that it would be better to have a war now than to have a war in 5 years when you're looking at 50 or 100 nuclear weapons being exploded as opposed to 1 or 2. And it's a cold kind of calculation that's taking place, I think. And it's an example of the extremity of our times. This is the karma of mankind coming to its return. So this is when the rubber band snaps back. And I think that we could be looking at a very, very energetic time over the next few weeks, a few months, and the next year or two. And I think that we should all try to remember that there is a plan, and there is an organization that takes place. There is variability and movement within that. We can make decisions that actually affect the future. We can choose to change things. That said, I look at the situation and I try to call it like I see it. And what I am being led to believe is that there is a conflict, a military conflict that is growing in the Asian region right now, and that the outcome of this could be a very, very, very massive type of destruction. And that's a gloomy forecast for the day and a gloomy prediction, but there it is. Everyone have a good day. Try to remember people, and try to be good to one another. Try to keep good thoughts in your head. It's not easy. It's not easy for me, but let's try to remember and try to hope for the best. Everyone have a good day, and good luck.